Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's so great to see everybody here today. Last week was very interesting. We were watching the forecast and we're like, it probably won't snow very much. And then Sunday morning rolls around and it's snowing and too late to cancel. So we had service. We had a really nice family-style service, an intimate group. It was really fun. But we missed all the rest of you, and so we're so happy we can be together this week. This week, I'm very excited. We're starting a whole new series. And it's a series that we're going to go into depth in for about 6 weeks. And the series is called Some Assembly Required. What could this be about? Cryptic. Actually, it's not so cryptic. For the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to be focusing on relationships. And so we'll be talking about, especially focusing in on the family, but this also relates to siblings, or beyond siblings, our classmates, our coworkers, our business partners, our teachers, the people on the bus, anybody that we have relationships with. This will also tie in together. So it doesn't matter where you are at in your life, if you have children, you don't have children, you have a spouse, you don't have a spouse. We've had parents, and we've had experiences as children, so we can relate to all of it, and then we can apply it into the world. So, and you may have noticed that just because we have a spouse, a husband or wife, doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to love them in a way that they can receive love. Just because you have parents, or just because you have children, just because you have siblings, it doesn't mean that automatically, because you have the pieces, that they fit together and that you have the experience in your family that you would always like to have. And just because you have other people in your life, your coworkers, your students, your friends, it also doesn't mean that they naturally fit together and work out the way that we would like them to. So, in other words, while we might have the necessary pieces in our life, there is some assembly required. So we're going to go into that. It makes me think of, if you buy a piece of furniture, if you're really lucky and you buy it someplace like American Furniture Warehouse, sometimes they bring it to you and it's already assembled. But if you're like me, and like a lot of us, we go a little bit cheaper route and we go to IKEA. And we buy our dressers and our tables and our chairs, and we have to put them together. Who loves putting furniture together? Oh, there's a couple. Oh, Anissa, she's a special person. It takes two people. Or it can be wobbly. We when we first moved here, we got this big dining room table. It's like a conference table in our dining room, and there's 10 chairs that go around it because we already have 6 people in our family, and if we want to have anybody over, we need more, right? So that was 10 chairs that Mike had to put together. Can you imagine putting all those pieces together? I don't remember how long it took, but I remember being glad that I didn't have to do it. I actually personally haven't had a whole lot of experience with assembling furniture, but I was at Cora's birthday party last year. She was turning 6, and somebody had given her this little armoire. It's a doll size. It's like this big, like a little armoire for her doll clothes and things, and she was so excited about it. And after her birthday party, she was running around, "Can you help me put this together? Can you help me put this together?" And her mom's busy and entertaining and cleaning up the party and everything. But I was enjoying myself and enjoying spending time with her mom, so I was like, okay, yeah, give it to me. I'll figure it out. So I opened it up and I glanced at the instructions. I'm like, okay, I got this. And then I started, all these little itty bitty little screws and putting the pieces together. And I'm like, oh, this is coming together really nicely. And then I realized that I have this whole part on the top is like backwards. And I can't fudge it. I can't make it work backwards. So I have to take it all apart, unscrew all the itty bitty little screws, which takes way longer than putting it together, by the way. And redo the whole thing. And I will say I felt very accomplished afterwards. I felt very proud of myself. But I did experience firsthand what it's like to try to assemble something without instructions or without clarity. I did have proper tools. But in this series, we're going to talk about the instructions, because if we want furniture to be solid, if we want it to be beautiful, if we want it to be comfortable, if we want it to work well, then we need the proper tools and we need to read the instructions. So in this series, we'll be talking about the instructions. What are our guidelines? What are the basic blueprints that we have to follow, that we've received through the Bible, through the divine principle, through the words of Reverend and Mrs. Moon, our true parents, and also different strategies or different tools that we can use to apply what we've learned through our instructions. So that's just an overview of what we're going to be talking about, why we're going to be spending so much time on it. And our first message, which I'm going to be sharing with you, is the basic blueprint. And this is like the most basic, going back to the original idea that God had for us and the most basic aspects. So, and because before we want to actually do anything, we want to look at the blueprint, we want to read the instructions and read them well and refer back to them during the process. So what is the blueprint? What is the original design that God had in mind for us when it comes to relationships, when it comes to the family? My first thought was, well, let's look at the Bible. Actually, it's so interesting. You know, in January, we did a 4-week Hundake potluck, which is like a gathering for sharing and reading. And once a week, we gathered for this potluck, and we would read some words, and we would discuss them afterwards. And I was sitting with Dr. Hendrick, and we were talking about the Bible. And he said, well, you know, it's interesting, because if you were to read through the whole Bible, 1,000 pages, you could condense everything, all the verses that the Bible specifically talks about the family in, onto one page. So there is value in there, and we will look at references in the Bible, but there's actually some limitations in just looking at the Bible and trying to figure out how to make this family thing work. And that is because that Jesus himself never had the opportunity to establish a marriage and a family and be the model for that. And since Jesus was a model for that time and for his disciples, even his disciples taught that actually marriage is not the ideal. They said, you know, if you must, you know, like if you can't control yourself, okay, then it's better for you to marry and have a family. But it was actually our true parents, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, who first brought the understanding that the family, true families filled with true love, was actually the ideal. It was the whole purpose. It was the starting point for what would have become the kingdom of heaven on earth. So I have this quote, which I think is really fascinating, by Reverend Moon, our true father. Christianity teaches that the Creator is holy while humans are sinful. Yet they say this because they do not know the value of human beings. This is what I would like to teach. God created human beings as his substantial form. That is his first purpose for creating us. Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing. God created human beings as his substantial form, that God would be expressed through us, but not just through me, but in our relationships and everything in our lives. And that is his first purpose for creating us. So in addition to the Bible, we'll be looking a lot at the divine principle and the words of our true parents for instruction and guidance. And today I want to zoom in especially on the blueprint for the family. I'm going to be talking a lot about the family today. And a lot of the series will be focused on family. But as I mentioned, I want to note that these same principles and guidelines that we're going to be talking about are also applicable to most any type of relationship. And that's why we call the family the school of love. Because ideally, we learn the practice of love in our families, and then we share that with the rest of the world in all our relationships, in all situations. I do want to share a quote from the Bible as we begin, because I do think it offers, it kind of sets the stage. And it's not actually specifically related to family. However, this applies in all our relationships, and especially our family. I thought it was interesting. I didn't even actually watch the music video the whole way through, and it actually used part of this quote, so that's kind of cool. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Sorry for my spelling. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. So this is the Bible's description of love. I was thinking about it. You can read so much about love. If you go to the bookstore, you can find all kinds of books on love, find everything online about love. But this is one of the first documented descriptions of love, and I feel it's really eternal and enduring description of love that we can still apply today. So as I mentioned, the family as a starting point. And what do I mean by that? What is family as the starting point? It's the starting point of actually our entire history and the whole way we relate to the world today. Ideally, God envisioned the family as a starting point of the kingdom of heaven, that from his first children, centered on him, would learn to love each other, love their children would grow up experiencing nothing but true love, and then it would multiply to create a substantial kingdom of heaven in this world. However, as we know, the family can also be the starting point of something completely different. The family, for many of us, the starting point of pain, the starting point of frustration, the starting point of discouragement, discord, resentment. And we see that multiplied in the world. We see it everywhere. But it started in the family. So how did that happen? Why is that? Let's look at God's original ideal in creating the world and humankind. So I want to share, this is a little diagram. Some of you are very familiar with it, and some of you might be kind of new. So this is what, in our faith, we call the four-position foundation. And basically, that this is the all existence, all development, all growth, and everything expands from this relationship. And you can apply this into many different situations. So this is kind of the blank slate, I'll call it, with origin, which we most of the time call God, okay? And an origin expresses, if you're a creator, if you're an origin, you express yourself in different ways. You would express yourself into your creation, a subject and object. There's different types of ways that you express yourself. And then these entities that you have created or that reflect you also have a relationship with each other. And when they come together, hopefully through love, then their union is actually the most perfect expression of the origin. And the origin sees itself reflected in the union. Does that make sense? I know that's kind of conceptual. Okay, but you can apply this into any kind of relationship, a family, a work environment, gardening. Everything begins with a start and then expresses itself into actuality. And when that actuality is united and harmonious, comes together to reflect the origin. So I want to take this more into practicality here. So I want to share a next slide. But before I do, I want to share something from the Bible. And this is from Genesis 1, verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. This was the first words, the first instruction that God gave to humanity. Before God said, don't eat of the fruit or anything, God gave humanity these blessings. And so we call these the three great blessings, and that if people were to follow these three great blessings and follow this blueprint, this would be the beginning of the creation of the kingdom of heaven on earth. So here it is again, this diagram. But the idea is that the first blessing, so to be fruitful, when we say be fruitful, it doesn't mean that we grow fruits or we provide fruits for other people, but to be fruitful means to come to maturity. A tree cannot bear fruit until it is mature. So the first blessing, to be fruitful, is what we call the first blessing, in which God, so this is the first one on the left side, God is the origin, and us, as his creation, has different aspects that reflect God. We have a mind, we have an internal side of us that resonates with God, reflects God, and we also have a body, which is God's beautiful masterpiece that he created us to be. When centering on God with love, our mind and body are united. When we have integrity, when our words and our actions follow the original desires of our heart and our mind, then you can call this individual perfection. Then this person becomes a reflection of God's character. That is the first blessing, okay? The second blessing we call family perfection. God is the origin, and then God expresses himself through different people in the planet, right? We are all unique and individual embodiment of God's expression of truth. And when the husband and wife come together, each is their own reflection of God, and centering on God, have a relationship of true love with each other, then they can come together, create children who are more harmonious expression of God. God can see himself reflected in those children. That is to multiply, right? And then to have dominion. Ideally, God is the origin with humanity as his children, but also this includes the world, this includes the environment, this includes creation. When we have a love of a dominion of love, a relationship of love with the world and creation and all aspects of our life, then we could call that basically the ideal world. That would be the kingdom of heaven on earth. So these are the three great blessings, but what we are focusing in on is this second one, of family perfection. Because the family is where we learn to practice love in our relationships. Ideally, first, simply by receiving love as children, and then returning it to our parents, and then learning how not to just receive and return love, but how to initiate love with our siblings. Maybe our younger siblings don't love us, but we love them. We learn how to initiate love with them and receive love in return. So you could actually also organize this second blessing with parents. This is more of like a conceptual, spiritual diagram, but we could also say that parents are the origin of their family. You could put parents in God's position, and you could have siblings on the left and the right, and then together they create our harmonious family. It's in these relationships of love. So all these little arrows going back and forth are supposed to represent love. This is where we learn to receive love, respond with love, and initiate love. Then, as we grow and expand our relationships, expand our influence, and as we relate to the rest of the world and other people in our life, and also our environment, then we would do so with true love. So this is why we call family as a school of love. And I also want to point out that each of these only can happen completely based on the fulfillment of the one before it. So we can't just jump to having wonderful dominion of love over the natural world, because maybe we ourselves don't know how to love each other. Maybe I don't know how to love myself. So it's a procession, right? As when we become mature individuals, then we can stand in a position to have a true relationship with our family. And when families learn how to love each other and how to create love and how to express love, then we have, you could say, the qualifications to share love with the rest of the world and dominion over the natural world. Okay, so that's like a little lecture here. You got through that? You got the basic concepts of it? I know it's a lot of it's conceptual. There's a lot of diagrams, but it's really, without understanding this blueprint that God had, we can't really get into the nuances. We can't really get into the expressions of it. We can't really experience it as fully as we would like to. So that is why I wanted to share that with you today. And so kind of in summary, I have a really great quote to kind of pull this all together. The family is the point where God's love can be connected to mankind. Therefore, the family becomes the base for the realization of heaven. So this is the basic blueprint, and this is the why. This is why we're focusing on this for our series. And we're going to be delving more deeply and deeply into this over the next 6 weeks. That's the end of what I have written here, but I feel like there's still something else for me to say. I guess what I have to say is that I'm looking out here and I see so many different families and I see so many different people, and you guys all come from different backgrounds and different walks in your life. Some of you might really resonate with this ideal, like, oh yeah, I can really see how that would work, and that's what I really want for my life. And some of you might be feeling like, I have no idea what that feels like. True love? I don't know. Maybe some of you have had experiences of trying to love, but it didn't work. It didn't work out. I actually thought this was so interesting, that the song, I really love that song we played. It all comes down to love God and love people. And we're like, and we can get that, right? Yes. But how? Because as we go about our life, we often find that it's not as easy as that sounds to love God and love people. We don't always know how to reach out to God. And we don't always know how to reach other people. We might feel love for them, but we don't know how to express it. We might want to help them, but we don't know how. I think that our first series that Mike and I went through on beginning the year with God was really focusing on that first part of loving God, right? Putting God at the center of our life, becoming people of God. And so this series is the loving the people part. And so if you love that song, love God and love people, this is for me. I hear it in my heart that it's like swells a little bit, like, yes. But then I feel like it gets stuck a little bit. How do I actually do that? So that is really the purpose of our series in these coming weeks, and really want to share that with you, and really hope that not only is it a lecture or a presentation or knowledge or information that we're trying to share, but that by the end of the 6 weeks, every person here will have had a breakthrough in loving God and loving people. It doesn't have to look like that ideal yet, okay? It's slow, it's a process. Maybe some of us are still working on the individual part. Maybe I feel like I'm not mature yet. Maybe I don't have all the tools I need. I'm still figuring out how to love myself. I don't know if God loves me, actually. I can understand that theologically, but I don't always feel it. That's okay, okay? Everybody is in their own spot, and all I'm hoping for is that we each take the next step into loving God and loving people, finding that in our life. Because when we have that experience, when we have a breakthrough, even if it's just the next step. Okay, I watched Frozen 2 this week for the first time, and there's this song where she says, just do the next right thing, okay? When we have the experience of actually doing the next step, actually doing the next right thing, it is amazing how our mindset can shift. We can feel so stuck. Mike was talking the other week about being stuck in a rut. And the rut is so deep. And even when we realize we want to get out, we don't know how because we're so stuck. And when our mind is there, it's almost impossible to feel that any of this could actually happen to me, that I could actually experience God, that I could actually find love in my family, and that I could actually have an impact in a positive way in this world. But when we have one breakthrough experience, it's like a cloud can lift and we can realize, oh, this is possible. I'm not there yet, but I can feel in my heart and I can feel in my soul a taste of what that is like. And it's not as hard as I maybe thought it was. So that's what I'm hoping out of this series and for each person here in the next 6 weeks. So I hope that when you come to service, when you listen to them, whether you're here or you listen online, that you come with that heart. That I want to find the next right thing. I want to take the next step. I want to become a little bit more of a pure expression of God in my family, in my school, in my neighborhood, and to myself. So with that, please join me in your prayer. I'm going to finish up. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you so much for another beautiful Sunday morning. Thank you so much for all of the families and individuals who gathered here together to come to you, listen to your word, to share with each other, experience your love. Heavenly Parent, I pray that each person can, in their own way, find you. God, we're all different. We all resonate with you in different ways, but I pray that you can find the way into our heart and that we can open up that door to you. Heavenly Parent, please be with all the people who weren't able to make it today. Touch their hearts as well. Encourage them. Help them to find the confidence to do the next right thing as well, Heavenly Parent. And I pray that as we go through this week and we go through this next month, we can all challenge ourselves to maybe rise above the difficult circumstance that we're in. And instead of reacting and responding, that we can become a subject of our environment, a subject of love. God, that is what you are. No matter what difficult situations you see in this world, no matter what difficulties you've gone through, throughout all of history, you have always remained the subject, the source, the origin of love. We thank you for your untiring, unfailing love for us, and I pray that even in small ways, we can begin to resemble you more in that way, Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much for our lives, for your love, for our families, and for this community. We want to offer this prayer in all our names here, and in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, a blessed angel family. Amen and adieu. Okay, thank you so much.